This is a Gen 1 Rockshox Zeb. The lower leg service is pretty identical for the newer Charger 3 Buttercups one. Let all the air out of the fork. Now it's a really good idea to take the rebound knob, count the clicks fully clockwise till it stops. So you can basically put it back to where it was when you started. Tiny little Allen key on the rebound adjuster. Only undo 2 threads and pull it off. Super careful with that little bolt. If you lose it, you're gonna be screwed, and it's very small. 5mm on the lower legs. Basically, those will come off, but don't fully unscrew them until you're ready to hammer on them. Now get 2 bowls and you can catch all the fluid coming out of the lower legs and not make a mess. I can tell you from experience, the Zeb always gets stuck together and you may need to pry it up over a trash can. This is the precise reason you do lower leg services, so you do not damage your stanchion. The foam ring got contaminated with mud and basically started wearing a hole in the stanchion. So basically, this can be fixed, and I'm going to show you how to fix it at home in a second. But what's more important right now is to do a thorough inspection of your fork. Squeeze that stanchion and make sure there's some wall thickness before proceeding. You need a cheap set of snap ring pliers. They're like $7 at Harbor Freight, linked in the description, whatever you need. You can bypass this with 2 picks, but make sure to use some eye protection because snap rings are hella dangerous. At this point, the air spring will pull out of the fork and we can see how much mud has bypassed the lower air spring seal. And this is probably the worst fork I have ever seen. Now you need to remove the air spring top cap. It's basically a cassette tool and it will unscrew. We need to remove it so we can clean the inside of the stanchion. Now this Zeb has a loof cap, a modified air spring, and yours probably won't look like this, but we can see how much mud has gotten in here, so we need to do a thorough cleaning of this air spring and put a light coating of grease back on it. A lot of the lower leg service is basically inspection and cleaning, making sure you're not gonna die when you're mountain biking, looking for cracks, cleaning out the alcohol, and doing a good wipe down. So we need a little pick and we're gonna pull the foam rings out from underneath the seals. Since this fork is so cooked, you have to replace all the seals on this. If it's a light service or you don't ride super hard, you can't reuse all this stuff. Using a 22mm wrench, slowly pry up on the dust wipers and they will pop out. This is the reality of servicing your suspension and why it costs so much money. It's extremely time consuming to clean all these tiny parts. So basically I clean the outside with degreaser and a brush, wipe it down super good, get all the dirt off of it first. And then after the outside is clean, we're gonna spray alcohol on the inside, take some paper towels, ram them into the lower stanchions with some kind of long rod, and then ram them back and forth to make sure the inside of the lower legs is super clean. Everything's clean and looks okay. So now we're gonna fix the stanchion damage. It is underneath the dust wipers so you can't see it. This is 1500 grit wet sandpaper, and I'm a little bit lazy so I'm sanding it in alcohol. You probably should use water. And basically we need to wet sand down that nasty scratch on the stanchion, and we should get like 6 months at least back out of this fork. Just make sure you take your gloves off and run your finger on it when you're done and make sure it's smooth and no fingernail is catching on large burrs. So make sure there's no burrs that catch on your fingernail before you put your damaged stanchion back together, and clean it off super good because there's going to be metal shavings all over the place. So we're going to prep the inner stanchion. It tells you to grease the inside of the stanchion up to like 10 centimeters. I can't remember the exact number. If you get a hose and you coat a thick coating of grease on the hose, we can go on the air side of the inner stanchion and rub grease there. It maybe helps friction. I've done some tests and it really doesn't help it. Now let's get our air piston ready. You don't want to use too much grease, but you want to use enough grease. Just take it on your finger, rub it on the O-ring super good, And then very important stuff is grease the shaft up so everything can slide up and down, up and down. Now don't forget this step, it's super important because you want to have your fork have the least friction as possible. So put the head of the piston in with 1 milliliter of oil behind it. I use the light duty lower leg fluid. It does call for heavy dynamic fluid. And then put 3 milliliters on the top of the piston. This will prevent the fork from being choppy. Now don't forget to put the spacer in and then the snap ring. I thought I'd film that whole process, but I didn't press record, so this is where it picks back up. Do look at the instructions for that section if you have any doubts. So you can reuse the foam rings per Rockshox instructions, and I do it all the time, but this fork is way beyond that. So basically soak your new foam rings inside of the oil for like 5 minutes. Now this is the way I do it, I just find it easier. I put the foam rings in first before I press the seals in because then I don't have to fight the seal to get it around underneath it. So always try to put the dust wipers in by hand. A lot of times you can squeeze them in just perfect with your thumb. If you're having difficulty putting the dust wipers in, just get a bottle cap and give it a couple taps and get it flush with the lower leg and call it good. Now to put the lower legs on the upper legs, we just need to be careful not to rip the foam rings. Make sure you cycle it a few times and make sure you don't feel the ripped foam O-ring. Now inject 20 cc's of oil into the lower legs and make sure you look at Rockshox Precise Guide for your year because it may change. Now it's super important to replace the crush washers on the lower legs, and I'm going to show you a really good trick to make sure your fork does not leak. So after you tighten those 5mm lower crush washers, lower bolts down, you have to hammer on the Allen key and then watch how much is loose. It was like literally 3/4 of a turn loose, so that's why a lot of forks leak after a lower leg service. You have to crush the crush washers with the hammer and then keep tightening it. Rockshox super famous for these crush washers being very difficult to crush. So just keep hammering and keep turning until it stops, and disregard the torque spec if you are a competent mechanic and you know when a bolt's gonna break. If you don't know when a bolt's gonna break, use the torque specification. Repeat the process on both lower legs. And now, put the top cap in, fill it with air, obvious stuff, but you need to dyno the fork. Make sure the rebound knob is working and the fork is changing rebound and you didn't screw anything up. Now, you gotta watch the opposite spectrum and click the Fox 38 service guide video on your screen because it will help you learn more information about lower leg and full servicing.